Thank you everyone for joining. I'm Jocelyn Leeming, and I'm joined with some lovely colleagues today and esteemed guests as well to present to you our Malaffi Annual Physician Forum. We wanted to shake things up a little bit this year and have some guest speakers. I have my colleague, Dr. Mustafa Mareshti, who can introduce himself. But firstly, I'm Jocelyn Leeming. I'm a clinical informatics specialist at Malaffi. I'm a nurse by background. I have a master's in public health and moved into informatics about 12 years ago now. It's been a real pleasure working with Malaffi and I guess, stepping outside of the clinical realm, but still having a hand in there and, with something like Malaffi. And I'm very proud to see what we've achieved in the last 5 years. So today we want to take you through some of our latest achievements. As you know, we are the first HIE in the region, and we've made some significant milestones. That's basically what we want to take you through. And then we'll have a lovely panel with Dr. Esmail and Dr. Tamer, who I'll introduce shortly, and open the floor for questions and hopefully have quite an interactive session. So I'll hand it over to my colleague and then over to the lovely guests.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. Good morning again, everyone. This is Mustafa Abdul Latif. I'm a physician by background. I work as a clinical informatics specialist in Malaffi. It has been a pleasure to work in Malaffi from 2021 till now. It has been quite the journey, and we're glad that you joined us today to take you through some of the milestones, some of the exciting features that we will present in Malaffi in the upcoming year, inshallah, together. I will echo my colleague Jocelyn. Stepping out of the clinical can be out of the norm in this part of the region. However, I'm so privileged in being able to work in the informatics, which is helping our esteemed healthcare providers to make their work more easy and efficient. We hope you enjoy your morning with us and you enjoy your cup of coffee with us today. And we hope that you will have a light and delightful session. Over to you, Joss.
Thank you. So I would like to introduce Dr. Esmail Ababi, one of our guests. He's medical director and consultant ophthalmologist at Moorfields Eye Hospital, and Dr. Tamer Badawi, who's a consultant cardiologist at Mediclinic Middle East. So I'll hand it over to the two of you. Dr. Esmail, you might be on mute.
Sorry, yes. No, thank you very much, Jocelyn and Dr. Mustafa, for inviting us, and it's an absolute pleasure to be over here. As you said, I'm Esmail Arbawi, one of the consultant ophthalmologist here in Moorfield Eye Hospital. I'm the medical director as well over here. I joined actually Moorfield, came for the first time to work in UAE only about 3 years ago. And from my point of view, seeing the evolution of Malaffi over these 3 years has been just phenomenal. And seeing that it's not been a static journey, but it's a completely evolving, dynamic journey. And that's really, really great to see that, because there's a lot of, unfortunately, healthcare informatics system. It's just someone tried to develop it and will stay there for years and years. It doesn't move forward. But the change I've seen since 2021 when I joined into today, it's just phenomenal. And that's been just that exponential rate of improvement. And I'm just hoping that this will continue to go and continue to make our lives easier. And obviously we'll discuss more details in more details. But so far it has been a game changer for myself, for my patient, and has made me much, much more efficient, especially in UAE, especially in Abu Dhabi. Whereas we all know there is a lot of healthcare shopping. Basically, the patients go from one place to another place, back to another place, to another doctor. And actually, by looking at Malaffi, you can get so much details without even doing any extra tests. So that's been really, really great pleasure to see and have. And thank you to you both of you and Malaffi for making that journey much, much easier for us as a doctors and healthcare providers. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. Dr. Tamer?
Yes, hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Mustafa and Jocelyn, for the invitation. I'd like to thank the whole Malaffi team. Since I'm Dr. Tamer Badawi, I'm a consultant cardiologist. I've been working with the Mediclinic here in Khalifa Street since 2015. And I witnessed the launch of Malaffi actually in 2019 when it was first launched before COVID. Actually, an innovation that time as Dr. Ismail said, gave us access to a lot of patients' data, especially patients who are going to other healthcare providers before we did not have any access to their data, the medications, the blood test. And then as time progressed, it started improving and started seeing more innovation, more investigations were added to Malaffi, the visits, the emergency visits, the clinical notes, actually discharge summaries for the inpatients. And I think with the patient's app, and I remember first time when it was launched and I would check the patient's file and see that he's done a lab somewhere else, the patients would be surprised. How did you get my information and all that? But now they're all aware, like we're getting patients now. They're telling me, oh, doctor, I've done a lab last week. You can check it in Malaffi. So I think it has been a great job, and I'm sure you guys have other innovative ideas for the future, hopefully. And thank you for the invite again.
No problem. It's a pleasure to have you both. And I guess that's what a lot of the points that you touched on is what we will plan to take you through today, and then delve into how some of the changes or the new features can help you, particularly in your areas of specialty that tend to touch, a lot of patients in this region. Ophthalmology is the gateway to healthcare, really. And cardiology as well, being, you typically work hand in hand together here in this region. So it's a real pleasure to have you both here today and for your insights as well. I'll hand over to my colleague, Dr. Mustafa, and we'll take you through some of the latest features of Malaffi. Oh, sorry, that was, I probably should have had the agenda there. As I said, what we were going to go through was, as I mentioned, just obviously the welcome and introduction, and then we'll take you through the new features. We'll take you through the roadmap for 2025 and some of the new features that we have planned and some of the data domains that will be coming in. Then we'll have the panel discussion where we'll talk through with these lovely guests, and then have the open discussion or Q&A at the end to take through some feedback and any questions that you may have. So don't be shy. We're happy to answer anything that you may have to ask. So where are we at with Malaffi? As you know, we have a lot of data in the system. We started back in 2019. And since then, we've come a long way with connectivity status. We initially focused on some high-level data, and that was probably the driver behind that was a lot of COVID. We really needed to get those lab results and patient visit history in the system. So we have a lot of information. I guess probably the most recent ones from here are the diagnostic tests, and we've built on that this year. Some of the clinical documents, we've got some new documents coming in the 2025 specs as well. Appointments, this is also being pushed out to Sahatna, which is the patient application, which we'll talk you through shortly. Radiology images, this is a massive value add for clinicians, particularly in reducing the duplication of effort, as Dr. Ismail said earlier, is a huge problem in this region and globally, really, when information is siloed and not available on hand. It's easier sometimes to just redo the test. Now you have those radiology images, the need to redo an image and expose a patient to radiation is not necessarily there anymore. So this is a massive value add to everyone in the market. So I'll just take you through, I'll just hand over to Dr. Mustafa, and he can take you through some of the achievements for this year.
So thanks a lot, Jocelyn. And again, good morning to everyone who just joined us. And we hope that you will have a nice journey and presentation with us today. So we'll start with what we Malaffi accomplished in 2024. And in terms of the features that we are looking for, we are categorizing them into features that are specific inside Malaffi, inside our platform as an HIE, Health Information Exchange platform, and where did our data from an HIE platform help in other initiatives that are led by our regulator in the Department of Health. So inside Malaffi, inside the HIE, from a features perspective, we were able to start adapting and supporting the first phase and stage of the primary care provider system, as DOH is looking to launch the primary care module inside the Emirates of Abu Dhabi. So we are trying to help from a Malaffi perspective, how we will ingest the data and how we will support this project in phased approach. On a second thing as well, we are starting to add more notifications and more alerts for the physician to till the physicians and other healthcare providers as well, who are the utilization of the Malaffi platform right now, of the patient if he is a participant of the EGP, as an example, the Emirati Genome Program, or if they are a participants in the umbilical cord program as well. So these kind of participation, which is supporting for the other public health initiatives, the flag of the patient themselves can be found in Malaffi. We dealt a lot of focus this year over the diagnostics. We did a lot of expansion on the diagnostics, as you know, and as Jocelyn showed us in the previous slide. We already receive a wide scope of clinical data information, and we found out this is the time to dig deeper into the diagnostics. So we expanded into multiple, such as in the ophthalmology diagnostics between the visual acuities, the optical coherence topography, as well as the color vision panel. We also expanded a little bit on the otolaryngology from a pure audiometry tone perspective. We are dive deeping more into the mental health, and to speak about this later, such as the BHQ9, as well as we did a dive deep on the neurology to start ingesting the EEGs, the nerve conduction test, as well as other evoke potentials. Plus, the newest announcement, you might have seen it if you are following our media platforms, such as our official LinkedIn page and our Instagram, the pharmacogenomic reports. It's now available in Malaffi, which is basically a state-of-the-art report that do the analysis for the patients who are part of the community members who are part of the EGP platforms in terms of looking at their genetic markup and then how they interact with different medications. In terms of the Malaffi, how we can use and utilize and leverage this HIE data in supporting our regulator, the DOH. We are supporting the e-prescription solution, and you will hear about this very soon, about the expansion of the e-prescription. We will keep these surprises to our onboarding team and our leadership once it gets announced more into the market. Also, the Department of Health is working in a disease registry platform. Apologies. And there is a lot of automated data and clinical data that we receive in real time, where we are enriching and supporting those disease registry platforms in both the virgin, the executive level on the DOH perspective, and the scientific level, where we are leveraging Malaffi data and other SMEs and subject matter experts that are appointed by the Department of Health in various specific disease registries, such as, but not limited to, obesity registry, diabetes, cancer registry, and so forth. Also, you know about the JODA, which is the quality metrics program that is being utilized by the DOH. A lot of it was a manual submission until recently that we started an automation program with the DOH, and we did multiple workshops. Some of you might have attended the workshop inside the Department of Health. And again, we are leveraging our HIE data in terms of how we can automate the JODA platform so that you don't have to do the manual. And plus, in our envision for the next years, and we will talk about this later, of how we want to expand on this. And last but not the least, the newly launched super app in GITEX, which is called the Sahatana app, which is basically a one app to manage your own healthcare data and elements. We are supporting it with the Malaffi data as well, in terms of the booking of the appointment, in terms of your laboratory radiology data. It's all of it on the device that you're holding all over the day, all the day. So we can move along with the data domain accomplishment, Jocelyn. Thank you so much. In terms of our data domain status, where are we, what are we heading, and what we have done in 2024? As we said, we expanded into a lot of diagnostics, and this work is pretty much completed. One big aspect that we are looking for in Malaffi is the standardization of the data. And as we know, we are standardizing some of the data, such as the diagnosis, that we only accept an ICD-10s. In the procedure, it's either CPT codes or USCLS codes in terms of the dental procedure. However, from a laboratory standardization perspective, what we have done this year is push the market toward a standardization of the result itself, so that from you as a healthcare provider, when you have a look at, as a healthcare provider, when you look at the laboratory result, you will see a unified structure of the data itself, a unified description across all the market, We have come a long way with our long standardization. This is an ongoing process that we will go forward to. Another exciting addition was the family and the social history. We did not have it before in Malaffi, and now we are adding the family history, which is quite important. And I'm sure we will touch base on that with our esteemed guest during the panel. I'm sure my colleague Justin is so excited about that, as well as other aspects on the social history, such as the smoking habits of the patients, their exercise habit, and other part of the wellness that could also implement it to be supportive to other initiatives for our regulators in between the Department of Health as well as the ADPHC. We expanded more data into the chronic problems, autism screening. We are looking forward to add it, as well as the elephant in the room, or one of the elephants in the room actually, that we are exciting about, which is standardizing the cancer staging. We are in line with the AGCC staging system in a standardization of the cancer staging, that we will unify how the cancer is being staged across all the market, utilizing long standardization as well as the SNOMED standardization, in addition to including the ICD-Os in the morphology and the ICD-Os on the topography. We are really excited for that, and we hope you will like it and enjoy it once we have our participant onboarded to that. So I hope you are excited of what we had achieved so far in 2024 and what we have in store for you for later. After the live demonstration by my colleague Justin, we will speak about the 2025 and hope you would get you more excited. Over to you, Justin.
Thank you, Mustafa. Sorry, I just clicked to my demo. So many of you should be aware of Malaffi and obviously how to access the system. Access the system is obviously embedded in your EMR, and to access it, you need to click on the Malaffi icon to launch the individual patient record. Okay. Now, just to preface, this is test data, so not real patient data, but I just wanted to highlight some of the latest features for you. Given that Malaffi's been around for 5 years, many of you should be aware how to use it and to function it. And if you require additional training or support, please don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to do a one-on-one or a group session at your facility to make it more efficient for you. The purpose of today is not to go through a full training session, but just to highlight some of the new features for you, okay? So obviously, this is my patient hire. As you know, you've got the patient summary here on the right. That just consists of the allergies, the recent encounters, the problems and procedures, okay? Now, typically you drill down here on the left to find more information. One of the most recent additions to Malaffi was the encounter-centric view tab. Now, this was a request from providers because, excuse me, many were finding it difficult to identify what happened during a visit for the patient. So this basically unifies the information based on the encounter and links it all together. So you can track the journey, I guess, of the patient. You can search by specific filters or to look for, specific encounters that you just want to look at for your patient, and it'll only show you what's associated with that particular visit history for the patient. Okay, you can also search by specific facilities, so lots of filters that you can use. And here it basically groups everything together in one page. It's much more of an easier way to navigate, and you can what's the word? Some of these are quite dynamic fields, so that you can actually select them and it'll take you to the specific document. So here, for example, vital signs, I want to look at that. It'll take you to the vital signs versus having to look here, expand, and find the specific test that you're actually looking for. Okay, so it's just a new tab that unifies the information based on the specific encounter. Now, over here on the left is typically where we keep a lot of the folders for new information. Now, as Mustafa mentioned, we have recently connected primary healthcare providers, or added the primary healthcare notification in Malaffi. So this is an initiative of the Department of Health to move towards more of a primary healthcare provider model. What we are now displaying is when a patient allocates a primary healthcare provider at their facility, it gets pushed to Malaffi here, and you can see who the particular provider is allocated for this particular patient, which is a great value add. So if you're, a specialist and you're trying to follow up information for the patient with their primary healthcare provider, you can see it here in the demographics. Okay, so do look out for that. Patient risk view has been there for a while, but I do think it's a great value add to Malaffi as well. It's always worth retouching on that. This basically shows the risk models for your patient and the level of risk that they are with developing this certain condition. Now, this is all calculated based on the individual patient's information that's in the system, okay? This gives you the risk trend, and this is recalibrated each time new data comes into the patient system. And then these are the factors contributing to the level of risk for this particular patient. So it helps you drill down as to why your patient has a high risk of hypertension, and it alerts you to actually move towards preventative health. So you can actually reduce this level of risk by implementing some health measures for the particular patient. Now, I won't touch on vaccines. They're pretty standard, same as appointments. Family and social history, this is a new field that will be coming in the system shortly. Obviously, no data in this particular patient, but if there's any family history will be associated here. And this just gives you some insight into the social status history that will be coming shortly for the particular patients. Diagnostics is really what I wanted to talk on today. As Mustafa mentioned, this was a big, initiative for us this year. What we originally had was cardiology diagnostics, so ECGs, and spirometry results, so respiratory diagnostics. What we expanded on was neurology diagnostics, ophthalmology diagnostics, audiology, and mental health diagnostics. Now, neurology diagnostics include nerve conduction tests and EEGs in the current form, and ophthalmology results include optical coherence, visual color vision panel, and visual acuity at this point in time. This was a large gap for the ophthalmology world in the past, and I think this is a massive value add for this particular area, like for you, Dr. Esmail, and your team at Moorfields, to have this information now in Malaffi. So they've displayed similar to this, and we can download them, we can print them, we can, modify the view, etc. Same thing with the cardiology diagnostics, ECGs. We will be building on this in future as well, but these obviously can come in here, so you can see your patient's history. You can download them, print them, and it gives you some insight, so you don't actually have to repeat that specific test. Moving on to radiology. Now, as I mentioned, we have images in the system, and I think this is a significant win for providers. Historically, we've had the reports. The most recent is the images. So if there's an image associated to the report, you'll have this view image button on the right. It's not obviously, doesn't pop out at you, so you do need to look for it. But you'd select this and it'll open the image viewer. Now, you can scroll down to see the specific image, and you can look at historical images for the patient as well. One thing we didn't actually mention, but was released at GITEX, and we're in a proof of concept for it, is the AI image model that we are looking at and working with the Department of Health on. So that may be coming in future, where AI tool is interpreting the images to support the radiologists in the market. So that's a potential something that will be coming potentially in 2025. So do look out for images. They are a significant value add and obviously can help reduce that duplication of effort for your patient. Finally, before I jump out, they're obviously the key features from the recent diagnostics, recent additions that we've had. The one thing I wanted to mention was Riati record. Now, many of you may not know of this, but we often get questions from providers around, do we have information from other Emirates? We do receive Riati records. So Riati is the Northern Emirates HIE, and we do connect to Riati. The next phase of this project will be to connect to NABID, which is the Dubai HIE. So we will have access to federal level patient information. So if your patient has been to a facility up in the Northern Emirates that's connected to Riati, you can select the Riati record and select search. It's searching right now, and it's a live on-demand document. So it's querying their record, basically. It's a continuity of care document. So each time the new data is ingested in their system and you query it, it will update this specific document. So you can see this information here, the recent visits for the patient, their social history, if they had any, their vital signs, etc. Okay. It's again another value add, and I do think it's with all feedback I've had from providers is that, you know, it is same thing, saved duplication of effort. They've seen an MRI that the patient had in Fujera and they didn't need to redo it at their facility. Before I jump off quickly and go back to the presentation, I just also wanted to mention the PGX or the pharmacogenomics report. We do have the EGP participant tag currently. So if a patient is a participant of the Emirati Genome Project, you will see a notification here to say that they're a participant or that they're not. The next edition of that was the pharmacogenomics report. Now this, it's not in a particular patient. I'll have to find another patient, apologies for that. But it is a additional documentation that requires you to break the seal for that particular information. So there's 2 stages with the pharmacogenomics to break the report. So apologies, sorry, it's a bit embarrassing, but you would have an additional note here to say, please break the seal for, and you've consented the patient to access their pharmacogenomics report. Before I jump off for today, I'll try and find it and show you what that actually looks like. But apologies for that. But do look out for it. If the patient has had a pharmacogenomics report, it will be pushed to us and you can access that now. It sits under clinical documents here as a document type saying pharmacogenomics. Okay. Apologies for that. Now I'll just click back to the presentation and we can move on to, I guess, our roadmap. Over to you, Mustafa.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jocelyn. So we have already gone through the 2024, and we have gone through our current state, what exactly from a data perspective that we are ingesting in Malaffi, what we have done so far in 2024. However, that's not enough for us. So we want to take you through what will be our enhancement, what will be we're looking at from both sides. Sorry, from a features perspective as well as from a data domain perspective. So we'll start with the features perspective on the 2025. Jocelyn, we can reveal our first one. So the first thing is a smart search functionality. So in the smart search functionality, basically, as you know, in any EMR, and maybe you are facing this challenging in your own electronic medical record in your own facility, one of the main challenges is how do I look for information and the time consumed by a healthcare provider of trying to access this information and this data. And in order to help, the smart search functionality, it does what it says. It basically gives you a search box where you can search for a specific keyword. And once you search for that specific keyword, you will either get the laboratory results or the laboratory orders that they get, or they have this keyword. You can search for this keyword inside the clinical document itself. So I can search for the word, as an example, cardiology, or I can search for the word myocardial infarction, or I can search for the word troponin. And then it will give me all the information or all the keywords wherever the troponin is mentioned along with the file of the patient. Now, this should dramatically less the amount that is needed by the healthcare provider in searching for a specific information. This is one of the things that we are excited about. On a second thing is the IPS, which is the International Patient Summary. The International Patient Summary is basically a continuity of care document, or what we'd like to abbreviate as a CCD. It is on demand. So as an example, we design a document that tells the information for the patient. We can include whatever information the information that we want from a design perspective. There are already a standardized information. There's already a standardized information about what we can include inside these international patient summaries, such as the latest laboratory result, the latest radiology results, and so forth. And then it can be generated on demand. This can be utilized in case if the patient themselves, they are moving back to their home country or they are moving outside, they can generate this IPS and have a patient summary of their own that summarizes everything that happened to them during the healthcare provider visits. Notification and alerts are basically things that, if, as an example, we want to start introducing screening alerts, childhood immunization alerts, also the adulthood immunization alert as well, this is something that can be done in the notifications and the alerts. Our medication reviewer, we know right now that it needs optimization, so we are revamping it and enhancing our medication reviewer by including the inpatient administered medication. We know right now the inpatient administered medication is not there, so we are looking forward to adding it, grouping it by the generic codes or grouping it by the trade name in order for the physicians to be able to see the medication in a more concise way and more informative way, that we can show them a different tab for what the doctor ordered, what the physician, what the patient actually dispensed, what was administered for the patient in both the emergency, outpatient, or the inpatient venues as well. Another integration that we are looking for is the LLM, which is a large language model. It is basically an interactive chatbot, similar like the concept of a chat GPT, but it is embedded inside the healthcare provider inside the healthcare file, or record of the patient, where you can basically ask a question like, what was the last 5 visits or what was the last 5 diagnoses that my patient had in the last 6 months? And then it will search the patient profile and give it to you. So you can think of it as an interactive chatbot on a health information exchange record. Another feature that we wanted to add to make our pediatricians happy, we know that this has been due for a while, and finally we are almost ready for that, is to start adding the growth chart. Of course, the growth chart that are approved by the DOH in terms of either a CDC growth chart as well as the WHO growth charts in terms of the weight for length, the weight for height, the head circumference, and so forth. We can move ahead, Justin, for the new data domains. And before we move on to the panel and we start our exciting conversation with our esteemed guests, the last thing will be that what we have in store for you for the 2025. We'll start with the dental procedures. As Justin showed us in the real time, we do ingest procedures. One of the exciting things that we want to customize our module a little bit for the dentist to start ingesting more information about their dental procedures, which is coded by the USCLS codes in terms of the quantity of the procedure, where it was done, the teeth that were operated, or the quadrant, the arc, or the sextant. Another thing, which is again more expansion in the neurology diagnostic and adding more tailored toward mainly maybe the multiple sclerosis side of thing. The reason why, because one of the DOH initiative is a disease registry, and one of the disease registries that we are looking at is multiple sclerosis, which is something that is important for the DOH. So we are trying to automate the data and we try to ingest it from our side. So we will be expanding more of the neurology diagnostic in the start of 2025. Also, for a clinical document, we have 2 exciting things. The first is more deep dive into the home care, where you get to see all the nurses and the physician home care documentation, so that if the patient is referred to the emergency and he has been multiple days seen by a nurse in the home care, you get to see the documentation to understand what happened to the patient recently. And the nice, exciting announcement is our ongoing testing to be connected to the ambulance. So basically, we will be starting getting the final report of the ambulance itself, which is under the EMS services. It will have its own folder, as Justin showed us during the demonstration, where we can ingest the ambulance report itself with all the data that was done for the patient, all the medication that were administered as well. And in the last thing, one of the gaps that we identify, because we are already start integrating and start automating the IDN, or the infectious disease notification, which is right now a manual. We are starting to automate it. It's another initiative as well with the ADPHC. So to support our standalone diagnostic centers and standalone laboratories as well, and the radiologists, when they are getting the order from the ordering facilities, they are the one showing the result to us. So we want to enrich this data by saying who was the ordering facility itself, so that we empower the ADPHC team and the IDN team to know exactly where the patient was by the time their sample was taken. So these are some exciting announcements for 2025. And without further ado, Jocelyn, we can move ahead to our esteemed panels.
Super. Thank you, Mustafa. And that takes us to the panel discussion. So as we introduced earlier, we have Dr. Tamer and we have Dr. Ismail, both, leading experts in their fields in the region, and we're thrilled to have you both here today. So I will just stop sharing my screen so we can see each other's faces. Without further ado, I have a few questions for you guys, if you don't mind giving us your insights. So for you, Dr. Ismail, I guess as an ophthalmologist in the region and as a medical director of Moorfields, relatively new in the field, and you did touch on it earlier, in the region, sorry. You did touch on it earlier, how, coming into the region and seeing the benefits of Malaffi. Can you elaborate on, obviously, the integration of Malaffi, and as we've grown as an organisation and, I guess the maturity of the system, could you elaborate on how important it is to have access to Malaffi and the integration there, and particularly in managing your patients that have multiple comorbidities, which typically your patient cohort would, if they're coming to you for, particularly the older generation, and how that would tie in with someone like Dr. Tamer and the care coordination that is required, and the benefits that you've found with Malaffi.
Thank you very much, Jocelyn and Mustafa, for that great presentation. And we're really excited to see all the new features coming in 2025. And honestly, every time Malaffi surprised me that you guys 2, 3, 5, 10 steps ahead, and that's really great to see that. But in direct answer to your question, first of all, I just have to say, with Malaffi is really it give us all the advantage we need in terms of make us more efficient. For example, I get sometimes a patient, for instance, I had a patient only a few days came back with a pale optic disc, and we have a pale optic disc. There's many different causes, but one of them we have to exclude the what we call a space occupying lesion within the brain. So all I'll have to do, just go on Malaffi, click, and there was an MRI for something else completely that got nothing to do with ophthalmology, and I got my answer. I know there's no space occupying lesion. I need to now concentrate on other causes of pale disc. Otherwise, that would be the first thing I would do. I have to send the patient for an MRI, wait another 4, 5, 6 weeks for MRI to come back. That comes negative, then go to do other tests. So you can see how much I've already bought myself 6 weeks of or 7 weeks or longer from the time. But also the fact that within that appointment, I could probably now make a diagnosis that now I've excluded that. Now I know it's going to be more an ophthalmological problem. But that's just to give an example of how efficient it can make us. And a lot of time, once we get used to it, we actually forget the benefit it's providing us. But only when we endure on it and we'll think about it, you really realize that the efficiency that it will bring us, the cost saving for the whole organization, for the whole system, basically, of healthcare. As we know, healthcare is incredibly becoming expensive, and repeating an MRI scan or a CT scan, not just obviously have a lot of disadvantage and exposure to radiation for a CT scan, for example, or other investigation, but also the huge public cost saving, which ultimately benefits us all, basically. And of course, that will make us all to be much safer, practice safer, rather than exposing, as I said, the patients to multiple radiation or other tests and blood tests and so on. So from my point of view, it is a really game changing, and I'm really glad to see that you guys' perseverance on improving it further and further. And as I explained, honestly, the improvement I've seen since 2021 to today is just phenomenal. And now hearing from yourself, moving forward to 2025, and the chat box and the searchability actually is a great thing, because exactly like you say, sometimes we've got, obviously, as we go, the documents will get more and more, and it'll be very difficult to search where exactly that information is. So having that chat box, having that searchability is just unmatched, basically. It's something will make it very easy to get information, because having information is one thing, but being able to access it in an easy way is another thing. And again, I'm really glad to see Malaffi is really having that holistic approach, not just of having a lot of data, but being able to use those data. So I'm really excited to be working in Abu Dhabi and over here, and having access to those patients' information. I'm not sure we answered your question, Jocelyn.
Yeah, that's fine. You answered a lot of questions, actually, so that's great. And I guess, Dr. Tamer, from your experience at Mediclinic, you guys have quite a robust EMR, and you've got a group of facilities within your organization. how has Malaffi benefited? I guess typically you probably see patients moving between the Mediclinic facilities, but also external facilities as well. How has Malaffi benefited you particularly in cardiology?
So actually, it's been a great help, actually, Jocelyn, in cardiology, like I told you, ever since the launch in 2019, because it gives you like a comprehensive patient overview in cardiology. So you have the notes, you have the labs, you have the images, we have the echocardiograms, and then lately we'll be adding the ECGs. And this helps in managing the patient. So again, you check his medication history, so you don't do any duplicate medications. Sometimes the patients are unaware, like we get patients admitted and from the ER, they're not know what they don't remember the medication they were taking. So we used to check into Malaffi and see their medication, even the dose history, so that we can adjust it. Again, prevention of drug interaction, which had helped us a lot. And even patients who have seen actually cardiologists or same specialties in other facilities, you can read their notes, their follow-up notes, what the patient had undergone. And I'll give you an example. Before, we had one patient, he was having chest pain, so he went to the emergency in a facility. And when they did the ECG for him, they thought it was an MI, and he had a coronary angiogram, which came back normal. Again, following year, he went to another facility. They saw the ECG, and then they did another angiogram, and then it's normal. 1 year later, same thing happened. So when he came and checked the data and seen that he's having the same ECG changes, and every time they do a coronary angio for him, it comes back normal. So this guy was being subjected to unnecessary procedures for nothing. So once Malaffi came in, when you have access to the patient's history and the patient's data, it helps you in managing the patient properly and preventing doing unnecessary procedures or investigations. So it was a great help, actually.
Super, thank you. Yeah, and I think what you highlighted there was the cost saving and the reduction in duplication of effort for the patient. And I think that is one major thing of an HIE in general, is that collaborative data accessible to you and to help you make those informed decisions, but also reduce the necessity to duplicate effort. And particularly, Dr. Esmail, you mentioned earlier how patients move between care providers here. You called it doctor shopping almost. Having something that visibility of that information can help, I guess, reduce that. And particularly the primary care model that the DOH are trying to roll out over the next year will hopefully reduce some of that as well, where you've got a gatekeeper model as such to support that patient and oversee that patient's care with the support of the subspecialties. So having that visibility in Malaffi, and that will expand over time, will be a significant value add, I think, there. So thank you. Mustafa, I think you had some questions.
Yeah. Dr. Tamer, we love to hear stories usually. We like to hear stories how Malaffi did help the healthcare providers in more of a continuity of care. So you being a cardiologist, I'm sure you deal with patients with multiple comorbidities that they get referred by multiple specialties between internal medicine, ophthalmologists, and endocrinologists. So can you share with us how did Malaffi help in that aspect, in the continuity of care between different specialties, and how the diagnostics actually aided or facilitated this?
So actually for us, Dr. Mustafa, because our patients usually have multiple comorbidities, we get patient, for instance, with heart failure, you'll find an element of chronic kidney disease, probably diabetes, maybe diabetic retinopathy for Dr. Ismail. So multiple comorbidities. So with Malaffi, you have like a comprehensive picture. So for instance, I get patients and I can see the visits. He has been to the nephrologist and he has an element of chronic kidney disease. So then that in turns reflects on adjusting his medications from my medications. I cannot give him the full dose, for instance. I have to lower down the dose according to his kidney functions. Same thing, he has been seeing the ophthalmologist and he has diabetic retinopathy. Then I have to lower his blood pressure more. That puts him at high risk. I have to reduce his blood pressure. I have to control or send him to the endocrinologist for proper control of his glycemic index. Again, for us, we have something called the risk calculator for patients who have cardiovascular disease. So they're categorized as high risk, very high risk, moderate risk, and low risk. And actually, one of the points where we categorize them is something related to neurology. So if then they have an atherosclerotic cerebrovascular disease, or so I can access that from Malaffi. He's been to the neurologist. He had a CT scan. One of them also is the carotid ultrasound or carotid duplex. So if he has a lesion there, that puts him at very high risk. Again, for vascular, we have the peripheral vascular disease. So if I see any imaging or he has visited the vascular surgeon and he documents that there is an incidence of vascular disease, that puts my patient at a very high risk or a high risk. And according to that, I have again to adjust the targets for his medications. So it's been a great help. And lately, most of our patients that we are seeing, we're actually opening the Malaffi portal just to check how they have been doing. Again, it helps us with the compliance. Have he been visiting like his nephrologist regularly? Have been visiting the neurologist regularly? So it's been a great help, and it's, like I said, an overall comprehensive overview of the patients, and it's actually a good tool, especially in these patients, with the high comorbidities.
That's great, Dr. Tamer. We're so happy that Malaffi was able to help in that aspect. Dr. Ismail, since we talked on ophthalmology and we talk about the vision, we want to take you to the visions of 2025s and the ADPHCs and the disease histories. So in terms of the future vision of how Malaffi is evolving, how you would foresee platforms such as a disease history of looking at specific disease, calculating specific risk of the patient, what kind of analytical dashboard that could actually impact your work positively going forward?
Thank you very much. So I think exactly like you said, the fact that we're going to have this data will give us a lot of real help while we're seeing the patient, but also how we want to use this data for our research, analysis, data gathering. And that actually will be an area which very much worth investing and spending time, because once we have so much data, it'll be very, very easy for us to do research, actually, for us to do audits, for us to do to look at various diseases, whether it's ophthalmology or another disease, look whether there's any correlation between one and another. And I think that's really the future of healthcare. That's the power of data. And given that now you're already being able to extract those data, have an AI algorithm looking into that, and being in a position where, for example, me as a healthcare provider want to look at X disease, I will be able to get anonymous data from Malaffi for multiple patients. And I think that's one area. I'm not sure at the moment what kind of consent process we have for the patients and sharing data for research purpose, but I think that's something it'd be well worth from beginning to have some sort of consent process for the patient, that we can use their data for research process. And of course, these data will be anonymous and they will not have patients' details or identifiable information. So I think that's an area which help us significantly. But in specifically with ophthalmology, as we said again, the fact that when a patient's come to me and there's been somewhere else and they've recorded their vision 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and they'll see the change in vision, that in itself become either an alarming or reassuring, depending on how it is. It could be, wow, the vision 1 week ago was 20/20, today is decreased by 3 lines. Why? And that again will give me that immediate urgency or non-urgency to do or not to do something, basically. So I think that's again, it's been a tremendous. But from my point of view, moving forward, it'll be really great to have that data available for research and development and devising a new treatment plan and seeing what is effective and not, basically.
That's great, Dr. Ismail. And I'm sure from a concept perspective and regulator perspective, DOH will be also looking at this closely. And I'm sure with the collection of data of Malaffi, as time go progress and the data matures more, gets standardized more, research and more publications will be in the scope, because that's the traditional improvement with the data. You first collect the data, standardize it, and then after that you build on it and you start predicting some patterns. That's great insight, Dr. Tamer and Dr. Ismail. Jocelyn, over to you if you have more questions.
Thank you. Just before, I'm just conscious of time, that's all. We do have Dr. Masood who has their hand up. I'll get to you very shortly. I just have one final question for our lovely panelists. In terms of, from a technology standpoint, are there any pain points, any things that where could you see Malaffi in the future? Or what are the top 3 things that we could do for you, I guess, to improve the efficiency that you need to undertake your roles? so that we can put them forward for suggestions. And I guess following that, we'll open the floor to questions. And Dr. Masood, thank you for your patience with your hand up. We will get to you very shortly, and then we can open the floor to questions.
Russell, Dr. Tamer, do you want to go first?
It's okay, up to you, Dr. Smail. So we'll just say you guys have done a wonderful work. I know in the backstage you think it's easy, but I know computer stuff and programming and getting all this data and seamlessly, I know it's a hassle. So you guys been doing a great job. The only thing, like we discussed, is I think if we have like the whole, which already started, the whole UAE. Is joined in Malaffi, where you can access the data. I know Northern Emirates are there, and soon Nabit will be there also, because sometimes you get patients from other Emirates and we don't have a history of their medications and their labs and all that. I think the integration of these two systems into Malaffi will be great. Other than that, I think everything like the AI, the search facility, that I think once you get multiple data, it's going to be difficult if you're looking for something specific. So I think the specified search options there. So if you're looking for something specific, you can get it readily and fast. I think you guys are doing a wonderful job, and we'll wait and see what surprise you have for 2025 and 2026.
Thank you, Dr. Tamer. Quickly, what would be the percentage of patients that would travel between or have care in other Emirates that you would see, just on average?
For me, about 10 to 15%.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. And yes, great suggestions. I agree. The connectivity, to have it from a federal level makes sense. It's a small country, but obviously there's regulations, etc., based on different governments that manage the Emirates. So hopefully, in future, very, very shortly, that is the plan for 2025 to get NABID connected. And then you will have that full access to the patient record. And then we will start optimizing the view of that. I know that it's not the easiest, given it's a continuity of care document, and they can be quite large, particularly patients that spend a lot of time up in other regions, or the elderly population who have a lot of medical information. So we'll start optimizing that in future as well. Over to you, Dr. Ismail.
Thank you very much. So from my point of view, one thing, it is great to see that you've had now the encounter view, where I can see the patients, which hospital, which doctor, so I can go exactly, like, for example, to ophthalmology or radiology or whatever specialty they've seen. So that's really, really great thing to see. But I thought what could probably help us as well, where you've got the documents, and on the documents at the moment, it shows the dates that the documents was being put in. On the panel, so when you expand it, it doesn't show me which hospital or which department or which specialty. I think it'd be really, really useful if somehow within document, as soon as you expand it, on the headline, we have the date, and next to it we'll see, for example, Moorfield Eye Hospital ophthalmology. So whoever looking, for example, they know this is an ophthalmology that because sometimes I'm looking for ophthalmology only, sometimes I may be looking for cardiology, for example, or another specialty, or for even specific hospital, because patient told me a story, something happened at that hospital, so I want to go straight to that note, see exactly what happened, or the patient had the surgery. So I think it'd be really, really useful within that document, when you expand it, if you had those categorized, not just by the date, by facility name and the specialty. I think that will be, again, I'm sure you're already working on a lot of these, making it so easy for us to gather information. But then having that, I think it will add quite a bit. But I think another thing, which I'm sure you're already thinking about it, is looking at the chronic diseases or diseases where there is screening required, for example, whether it's diabetic retinopathy, diabetes, or anything else, that screening and notification will comes up. And I'm sure you're doing a lot of work on that regard. But for us, for example, ophthalmology, one area which can cause a severe bilateral blindness is what we call retinopathy of prematurity. It's babies who are born premature. If you don't screen them, you don't do specific treatment for them within weeks of getting born, first 4, 5, 6 weeks, they could go permanently blind. And for example, in UK, we used to have this huge problem where the patients, because there's no availability bed, they go from one hospital, they get born in one hospital, then they go to another hospital, and then they get missed that they need a retinopathy prematurity screening, and actually a lot of patients went blind. And what they did there in UK, they created a system just for that. So when the patients go between neonatal unit, there will be straight away a notification saying that this patient's need his second retinopathy check in a week time. So I think if we add that, I know that's more inpatient, not outpatient, but I think that's an area which given that a lot of babies surviving premature baby, and given the fact that it could causes bilateral blindness, it'll be great to add those modules, not just for ROP, but it could be also for other areas of specialties where they are very, very high risk, where the patients go to wherever that notification will comes up. So I think that will add quite a lot of benefits and deliver a lot of the benefits to us.
Very great suggestions, thank you. And hopefully, I guess in the short term, maybe some of the LLM or the smart search features might help with navigating in particular the document types. The alerts may help. As Mustafa said, that's something that we plan to focus on this year as well. Excuse me, next year. So perhaps building that into, I guess the schedule, similar to the vaccination schedule, for other areas of interest, may be something that we should consider as well. So thank you so much for those suggestions. That's fantastic. I'm just very conscious of time that we're at 9 o'clock now, and then we may have some questions. Firstly, I'll just open the floor we'll start asking if anyone has any questions. Obviously, Dr. Masood is there.
Jocelyn, I think we have a question on the chat by Dr. Muhammad Barka.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah, if you would like to address this. So Dr. Muhammad is asking us if we start integrating the data that is coming from remote patient monitoring, such as the remote or continuous glucose monitoring, for an example.
Sure. Do you want to take that one?
All yours.
Thank you, Dr. Baraka. To date, no, we don't have integration with the glucose monitoring from a patient perspective. Perhaps if it's going into the EMR, then we could receive it in Malaffi in future, or perhaps if the wearables through Sahatna. So Sahatna is a patient application, as many of you would know, and that will be now used as our I guess, patient application as well. It feeds into, we previously had the My Health Record, Malaffi Health Record, which was the patient application. Now that information is in Sahatna. So if anyone lives in Abu Dhabi, you can download that. If you've been a patient somewhere, I highly recommend it. It's a great tool. But through that, there are a lot of wearables that patients can the data from the wearable is being pushed into Sahatna. Maybe in future, something like the glucose monitoring tools from the patients may come in and feed into the system itself versus just sitting siloed in Sahatna. But to date, no, sorry, we don't actually integrate with that yet, but it's something that we are considering. Thank you for that. I hope that answers your question. Dr. Masood, you've got your hand up. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, Dr. Masood, you can now just unmute yourself and you will be able to speak.
Thank you very much to give me this opportunity. It is a really great, and I see this information available in the Malaffi. It helped a lot of doctors to have a better idea about the health situation of every patient. And I have to thank all of you that you are still working to upgrade and update this information in the system. Now my question is general, not a specific field, and it is forwarded to Dr. Mustafa. Dr. Mustafa, with everything positive in the life, there are negativity as well. So can you mention anything negative about this system, if you have any?
From an HIE perspective, from Malaffi perspective, Dr. Masood?
General, about everything in this system, from the a small part to all the information available on the system.
So, Doctor, as you rightfully said, in every single thing in the world, there are positives and there are negatives, and it depending really on the utilization of the tool itself. We can sit here as an example and argue that social media is bad or social media is good. You will find people that are advocate for the social media. It's a good tool. It's an informative tool. They get information that they will never reach to. And you get another people that they will see it from a different perspective. For my perspective, from all the electronic medical record and all the technology that goes into electronic medical record, it depends on, it's in the end, it's a tool. It depends on how me as a healthcare provider, as a healthcare enabler, I'm going to use it. It's not going to replace my clinical judgment. It's not going to replace the patient who is in front of me. Me dealing with the patient, me having this trust between a healthcare provider as a patient will always be there. Now, in case that if I decided as a healthcare practitioner to depend on technology and detach from the patient, then this is a negative thing. But we can't blame this on the technology itself. But as an example, and I was working before Malaffi in implementation of EMR systems. So basically my whole career was to move the hospitals from a paper-based medical record to an electronic medical record. Was it having some downsides at the start? Yes. But then what I have noticed is the more it gets adapted to the daily life and the daily activity and how you think of it as a healthcare practitioner, of how it will help you. Yes. Now, if you misuse it, it's like any other tool. It's like your car. You can drive it, enjoy, take your family, enjoy rides, or you can drive it recklessly and then it will wreak havoc on your life. So I think of it from the same way. It's an enablement tool. The negatives, of course, if I'm depending so much on it that I forget my own clinical judgment, then that's not good. And if I neglect it totally, then that's not good. It's a tool. It's information that is available. You can use it as you see fit in your clinical judgment. If you overuse it, then that will not be a good tool. So I would always consider the tool as a neutral, and it's depending on me as a healthcare provider of how I want to leverage it and use it. And I hope that answers your question.
Yes or no, because I will open your eyes in other perspective, let's say.
Sure.
Before this system availability, and there was all this information on medical condition of the employee or patient available in the system, people, they were submitting all their CV for recruitment in the companies. Mm-hmm. Now, with having all this information, this is sometimes has negative impact on the recruitment of the people, because they get unfit due to their condition and they cannot get the job.
Now, again, here I will take it from the other way around. So healthcare record, they already compliant with the privacy. Ideally, the people who get access to the health record are only healthcare practitioners, basically, and it should not be misused. And there is a lot of a privacy that we abide by Malaffi, and there is a regulation on how you use the healthcare information. Healthcare information cannot be misused. I cannot, as an example, as a recruitment company, have an access to the healthcare data of the patient and then take this data and then judge the patient ability to do the work. That shouldn't be the case. This is, again, is a misuse of information. And forget the technology. Let's go back to the paper age. If I'm a recruitment company and I went to the hospital and I asked for the medical record and the hospital gave me that medical record on paper and I took it and then I based my decision on recruiting the guy based on this, then again, this is not the fault of the file. This is not the fault of the medical record. This is the fault of the handling the privacy of the patient record. Patient record and privacy, it's already a sacred, and there is already a lot of regulations that well known internationally as a standard of how the healthcare information should be handled. Whether it is on paper or paperless, it's the same.
So how you get the fitness from a doctor?
Sorry for the interrupting. I have to be leaving now. So thank you so much.
Sorry, Dr. Ismail.
Thank you. Bye-bye then.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ismail. Take care. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You know, for example, pilot, they need the fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And the fitness, they are getting it from the doctor. So doctor has access to this information. And according to this information, he will give his fitness. That's right?
Yes, that's 100% right. But again, like the fitness is a criteria, right? I mean, the criteria doesn't have to do with the abundance of the information or not abundance. I will just always get it back to the misuse of information. I'm an airline company. I do have my own internal policy of how I want to recruit. Fitness of the pilot is important because it is linked to the safety of the passengers. Again, if I am going sneaky, misuse the information, I can do it with technology or without technology. Easy access to information doesn't prevent abuse of the information. And we are so happy, Doctor, even with Justin and myself, just because we are conscious of time, we can take this offline, have a separate meeting with you and address all your concerns from privacy. We are 100% ready to do that. You can leave us your contact and email. I'll be more than happy to contact you.
I appreciate
Justin.
it. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Dr.
Jocelyn, we have a call. We have also a question on the chat from Hassan Imam. He's asking about the privacy and the privacy seal. If you could shed some light on that.
Sure. Some privacy, sometimes all information are hidden. Sometimes part of it is what is the difference. Right. So breaking the privacy seal. So I didn't actually mention it in the demonstration, but you may have missed that part in the education piece. But what is required for Malaffi is obviously, as you know, it's mandatory to connect and it's not an option to opt out at this point in time. So to support patient confidentiality, certain areas or information is seen as sensitive in Malaffi, and that's typically around certain diagnoses that sit under either behavioral health, infectious diseases like your HIVs, your hepatitis, mental health, substance abuse, and fertility are typically your sensitive areas. So anything that sits under that is seen as sensitive, and you need to break the seal, similar to an EMR, like you need to break that glass as such to access that information. Now, when you do that, we audit it. So we look at who does that on a regular and can track that. So it is audited and monitored. It remains open for 1 hour, and when it happens, it breaks the whole, anything that's sensitive in the patient's record will open and be available to you. Now, this is typically only for level 1 users. So Malaffi has select roles based on the individual user's needs. So physicians are typically level 1 users. You may have some nurses who might be level 1 as well, you know, your emergency nurses, your triage nurses, etc., or some of your pharmacists, but typically it's for physicians. So in terms of that information is not typically visible to you until you break the seal. Obviously, it was a requirement from the Department of Health and us, and obviously the select areas were approved by the Clinical Advisory Committee, which I guess governs us and supports us with our, I guess, how we've rolled things out with Malaffi. I hope that answers your question. So you need to break the seal before you can actually access that particular information. It's usually your diagnosis, so in your encounter, any procedure that sits under those 3 areas or 5 areas, any lab result or any clinical documents. So if your patient had, you know, a psychiatry admission, that would typically be a sensitive encounter. You need to break that seal to see that information. Thank you, Dr. Hassan. Dr. Laili?
Yeah, the mic is enabled, so you can unmute yourself and please go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Leila Hashmi, endocrinologist from Mediclinic. Thank you very much and congratulations for this really achievement, because it helps us too much. I want to ask something. Sometimes see the consultation and the different doctors seen by the patient, but still for some facilities we cannot see all the lab tests. I don't know if there is a problem with the download of this data, or because some facility doesn't upload until now all the lab tests, because it's important for us to see the A1C, the last lab test done by the patient, but still there is a lack of information about the lab test for some facilities. And for these same facilities, sometimes we can find the data and sometimes we cannot see the data. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, Dr. Leila. So in terms of the connectivity, Malaffi is connected to almost 100% of the market. Now, in terms of our onboarding, which is, as an example, how we are reaching out the providers and how we are reaching out the market in order to onboard them, this comes sometimes into phases. So as an example, from Malaffi side, we are receiving a platform, and then we go and then example, we go to each and every facility and then we onboard them. Some of the facilities might have a little bit of a technical challenges, so they are unable to send us a certain data domain. So our onboarding team works with them continuously to get them up to speed to send us this information. Another thing is that sometimes we do a data quality check. Our data quality check can have on 2 levels. One of the level is on the receiving level. So as an example, if the information is sent to us lacking a vital parts, then basically we reject this message and we ask the facility to resend it to us. So in terms of Malaffi not having the result, it could be either that the facility is not yet connected with their laboratory and our onboarding team is continuously working with them, or it could have been that they send us the data lacking vital information that could compromise the clinical integrity of the data. So we reject the message, giving them the feedback to resend it to us. And we have another team that deals with this case. Sometimes there are technical challenges, and this is all we are aware of, and it is a continuous process that we have to ensure the completeness of it.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I think there is a long question that I saw in the chat. Jocelyn?
Yeah, I might pop this one offline. I'm just conscious of time. It's 9:15, that's all. And a few of us have to jump off to other meetings. Just check who that looks like. Lena. Do you mind, Lena, if you
Yes.
pop your contact details in the chat, or I'll pop our emails in the chat and you can reach out to us and
Yes.
discuss this in more detail, just because it's quite specific. May not necessarily be related to everyone else on the call. Again, thank you all for joining today, and a massive thank you to Dr. Tamer and Dr. Ismail for your time. It's been so lovely having you both here. You've been such a perfect fit for this panel discussion, and your insights, you know, are fantastic. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Really appreciate it, and all your efforts, and yeah, for keep being the Malaffi champions, and come to us with any suggestions. Anyone on the group or on the call today, if you have any questions or queries, please don't hesitate reaching out to us. I'll pop Mustafa's and my email in the chat, and we're always happy to support and navigate your way through the system, or any suggestions that you have, or if you have any use cases or recent patient experiences that you wish to share. We love hearing how Malaffi has improved patient care in the region, and we often post these on social media and use them to, I guess, remind people of the benefits of the system. So if you have any that you want to share and you want to, you know, get your name out there and your voice, please don't hesitate to reach out. Just send us a quick email, or you can give us a quick call and we can take you through the steps for that. But thank you again for everyone for joining. Look forward to all the new features for 2025. And yeah, the only way is up. So thanks so much. Thanks, Dr. Mustafa. I really appreciate your time.